It's a 150-year-old story with a surprising 21st century resonance. Victor Hugo's Les Misérables is regarded as a 19th century literary masterpiece. After no fewer than 6 film and television incarnations, it's now poised to capture a vast new worldwide audience with the release of Tom Hooper's big screen musical. Join us as we examine the spiritual heart of the story that continues to inspire millions 7 generations later. This is Context, a look at life beyond the headlines.
Well, our first guest created the role of the grown Cosette for the on-stage musical production of Les Misérables in 1985. Rebecca Caine is an opera and musical theater performer and the leading lady in Oklahoma, My Fair Lady, and Phantom of the Opera, to name just a few. She joins us now from London, England. Let's welcome Rebecca to Context. Rebecca, why do you think this show moves so many people?
I think the secret is in the final words of the show, which are to, makes me tear up just to say it, but to love another person is to see the face of God, whatever God means to you, or, you know, whether it's nature or him upstairs. And I think that that's something that everybody relates to. Also, people struggling through very difficult times. I think it's a very deep show that reaches people on many, many levels because of those reasons.
You played the role of Cosette, and it was those emotions on those very levels. How did you create the role of Cosette for yourself?
Well, I was rather surprised to find myself in it. I was actually singing at Glyndebourne Opera in the chorus at the time, which was a sort of rite of passage for young opera singers. And I had done a couple of musicals, including My Fair Lady in Toronto, but I wanted to be an opera singer, and I was told you shouldn't do both. So I'd gone to do my chorus year, my apprentice year at Glyndebourne, and the director, Trevor Nunn, saw me there and kind of had me washed and brought to his tent. And the next thing I knew, I was extracted from the Glyndebourne season, and I was at the Royal Shakespeare Company. And it's rather a cool story because I walked into rehearsal on the first day, and there were 2 actors that I'd known for some period of time, and they ran up to me and they said, "Oh, darling, you know, it's crap. I will be off by Easter." And I don't know what Easter they meant, because nearly 30 years later, it's still running. So it was an amazing time, but of course, we didn't know what we were creating. We thought that it was a new show. We didn't realize it was going to become this extraordinary thing that would run for such a long time. And I was quite new and inexperienced, so creating something new was a bit scary, really, because you didn't have anything to listen to or to look at, to reference for your performance. So it was an extraordinary experience trying to make something new at that age.
And what became your favorite scene in the production of Les Mis?
Oh, well, I think the Act 1 finale, which is right up there with the West Side Story finale, as being one of the fantastic moments in musical theatre, when all the separate characters come together and the students are marching, and I'm running off to Calvary, as Jean Valjean talks about going to Calvary. And here's a little joke for you. I went home and said to my then boyfriend, now husband, I said, you know, Calgary is a really long way to go for Jean Valjean and Cosette. So that's my little moment of the Act 1 finale. But it's definitely that. And I remember when we were at the Royal Shakespeare Company, because we'd opened to such bad reviews, but the reactions we were getting from the audiences was so different. And I remember that when the curtain that we could see through, the scrim, came down at the end of that, and I was hitting my top C, which I put in, by the way. All the high notes in my role are there because I put them in. And I remember seeing this man stand up in the audience and put his hands in the air and shout to no one in particular. He shouted, "This is the greatest show I've ever seen in my life."
Well, Cosette deals with many issues in the story: abuse, deprivation of affection, food, deprivation of love. Her guardian, Valjean, is taken away for a long time. Her would-be suitor is also taken away from her for a brief time. A lot of emotions to not only portray, but to sing through. What did you see all of those emotions connecting best with the audience? Which one connected best?
Well, I think the abused child, obviously, the terrified child, and that is why the little girl is the face on the poster, because I think, although Cosette doesn't really do very much in the show, and I have to say that when I did her, the role was about a third bigger. It's been cut and cut and cut and cut. So although she is rather the motivation for the show, the role itself has become smaller. She is someone that people love and want to protect and things like that. So I think it's probably the abused child is what people connect with.
And what do the characters Valjean and Javert represent about real life?
Oh, well, I mean, Javert gets me very cross when he's seen as a villain, because he is very literal about what he reads in the Bible, and I think he's sort of a fundamentalist, really, and that is why he kills himself at the end, because his faith is so rocked by the fact that this man he's been chasing all his life, Valjean, has done something like let him go, because he realizes that Valjean is a holy man in his way, and so you have the two who believe they are both doing right, and that is the fascinating conflict. I think Javert is particularly misunderstood.
And Rebecca, what do you think we can learn from those two characters?
I think it's probably the moment with the bishop at the beginning, which is played by Colm Wilkinson in the film. Colm is, of course, the original Valjean, and he and I did Phantom of the Opera together in Toronto and are on the recording together. The bishop gives back the silver to Valjean when Valjean has stolen it because he's starving and has no money, and says, "I have brought your soul for God." That to always, I get so emotional talking about it, isn't it silly? To do the right thing, to always give people a second chance to do the right thing, and to believe in people even when they're seen as bad, to find the good in people, I think.
I get the impression that this incredible play is still a spiritual experience for you.
Well, I think it must be for everybody. I think that must be the reason why it has become such an enormous thing. And I think for me, there's so many actors and actresses out there, and we get so few chances to create something, and to create something that means something to people is incredibly unusual. And I didn't appreciate it when I was young, and having that moment, and to watch it become this thing that has meant so much to people and is so loved by people. I think it's something to be incredibly proud of, and I feel enormously lucky to have been a part of it, because that's what it was, and that's what so much of being in show business and in life is luck, being in the right place at the right time. So it means a lot to me.
Rebecca Caine, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
Now it's time to find out what you think. Have you ever been spiritually impacted by a movie or a play? Send us your answers by phone or email, Facebook or Twitter, and our studio audience is going to take a live vote, and we'll have those results in a moment. But coming up, we'll dig deeper into Victor Hugo's story of Les Misérables and find out why it's regarded as such a timeless classic.
I dreamed that love would never die. I dreamed that God would be for